Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss all things to do with the markets. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and all the stock markets and all the metals markets and all the markets that are moving up in an attempt to make some or a lot of money on the internet. Load up discussion today. We've got Bitcoin hitting 97K, up 3%, whilst gold and stocks are flat. It has dipped a little bit beneath that now. Supreme Court does not rule on Trump's tariffs for the second time. Strange stuff going on in the world at the moment, guys. Very, very strange stuff. We'll touch on that as well. And Monero hits $800. The privacy narrative is still in focus before pullback to around 700. That literally 2x'd in the course of the week. We'll touch on all this stuff and more. And delighted to say we've got Adam from sport.fun joining us on their TGE day today. We had a great conversation with him last week. Want to get a little bit behind the scenes and how they are preparing for the launch, try and sneak out some further details for their future plans. So excited to host this show in partnership with them. I've got Legendary in the co-host seat with me today. We're ready to get into it. But just a reminder, friends, before we do, nothing that we say here is financial advice. The market is very, very risky. We do not know anything for sure. So please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, it's Thursday. It's the 15th of January. How you doing?
GM Legendary is doing fantastic. I am fully entrenched in the vibe code trenches and extending the setup and building stuff so agents can work together, and probably overcomplicating things and over engineering things which don't need to be over engineered. But it is fun. It is entertaining to do so. It's also a premiere for the show, because when I'm going to do the Legendary market overview, I'm going to use one of my tools to present what's going on the stock side of thing, which I find to be exciting. And it feels like a lot is happening. Lots of updates, lots of things are being published. Gemini now releasing personal agent, personal intelligence, to give it access to all of your emails, Google Calendar events, basically your entire online existence. It will personalize the agent to who you are as a human being. If you want that or not, is a completely different type of question. But it feels that a ton of things are happening in this area over the last week or last 2 weeks. The thing that I've also noticed with that is how fast now the X algorithm is to change for me. Like, basically, I stopped seeing anything crypto related, and all I see is now AI news. And I feel like it's cool that it's so reactive, but it's maybe exaggerating a bit. It's treating me like I'm a completely different human who doesn't care about crypto anymore at all, and all I see is coding stuff. So that is just some extra observation which I had over the last couple of days.
That is interesting. That's very interesting. I agree with the algorithm thing. There are people who I used to follow a lot and just have completely disappeared from my universe, which is very, very annoying. Maybe a little bit because I went on a bit of a break over Christmas as well, so I'm taking a little bit of responsibility myself there. But on the coding stuff, I started coding as well. And for people who know already, I'm not the technical person. Like, I'm not the person who understands any of that stuff. I've never been inclined to even bother experimenting. My brain doesn't work in that way. But if I can do it, I started doing this spreadsheet which is going to automatically calculate my LP positions and the yield that I'm making, checking that any impermanent loss and anything like isn't going to like wreck the position, basically. And I've been like fighting with it a little bit, to be honest, because it didn't really understand how the LP worked, but it was kind of interesting. It then asked, like, okay, what type of LP is this? Is this like a Uniswap V2? Is it a V3? Is it like Curve? Is it like this and that? It had to ask those questions because it kept getting it wrong. It was also trying to take the easy way out. It's like, oh, well, if you input these two things, if you input the price of the two assets, and if you input the percentage of the pool that they are, then I can do this. When I was like, look, I've given you the starting positions. If I just tell you the price, you should be able to figure out the percentage, because you know where we started, and then it should evolve. So I've definitely been fighting with it a little bit. What's your strategy when you get in a fight with your AI?
Well, it depends on where I'm working with it. Sometimes what I
I
like
thought you means like it depends if I'm in public, I'll be polite. If I'm at home, then I'll be then I'll
re-
be really rude.
there was a couple of answers that someone did an analysis on like AI behavior, and I think there wasn't a joke, but basically, if you threaten them with physical violence, they tend to think harder. So I'm like, solve this, or I'm going to punch you in the face is a strategy. But what also has happened for some users, and that's not a super consistent behavior because obviously these LLMs have don't give you the same answer every time you ask the same question. There's some variation in that. And on the edges of that variation, some users had normal conversations where Gemini basically stopped the chat and was like, dude, calm down. And if you calm down, come back to me in a new chat, and close the chat itself. And like refuse to answer in that anymore. That happened too. But my go-to solution is I'll either be like, write a handoff for another AI agent. What have we been discussing? What's the question? What's the issue here? Write that handoff in a detailed way, and then I copy paste that, and I use that in a new chat, either with the same AI, or I'm going to move to another of my agents to talk to them. But I feel like writing a handoff and starting a new chat sometimes is helpful instead of continuing that line of thought, maybe where there's been some hallucinating or whatever going on.
I like it. Wanted to bring Oxxyy up to conversation, wanted to get right involved as soon as he thought Legendary was being domestically abusive to his AI. Oxxyy, welcome to the stage, my man. What's your thought here before we get into the main stuff today?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to reiterate that you trying to figure out the LP like profit and loss and then impermanent loss as it relates to like the price fluctuations is you're not alone in that fight. So I've been doing the same thing, trying to figure out build out a tool to where I can monitor like, okay, is my yield enough to offset any impermanent loss if XYZ happens, and then like kind of build out that forecast, if you will. And it is incredibly challenging. And even to the point where a lot of tax softwares can't even get it right. So I've tried like 3 or 4 different tax softwares to like, appropriately capture what your capital gain loss is in
Sure.
addition to your yield. And it is an absolute mess. So I just wanted to say you're not alone in that fight. But maybe I might shoot you a message later because I've been battling this as well. And it's a feat to try and get this figured out. And AI has been helpful for sure, but it is a battle.
It's hard. It's very, very hard. Fortunately, I mean, I know you're um, more versed in it, coming from a more like structural tax background and stuff. And for me, it doesn't need to like all the T's and crosses don't need to be joined. I'm just trying to check the yield and broadly see that okay, this is how much I'm making every day. This is how much the whole pool is worth now versus yesterday versus the day before and stuff like that. Um, but even any strides towards this would be super helpful because I think otherwise it's been so hard to track for a long time. So definitely leverage the stuff and just a message to people who are thinking about entering in. Like you got to do it. This is how you level yourself up 5 to 10x over the competition. It's one thing being curious, which I think was enough when you first entered the space. Like, oh, just be curious, follow your curiosity. That got me into NFTs. It got me into crypto. It got me into all this stuff. Now it's like, okay, cool. Be curious about AI, but you're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to do the tools. You're gonna have to press the buttons. You're gonna have to write the text. I guess in a way, it's the same as with crypto. Like you had to press the buttons. You had to buy the NFT to figure out what it was, to feel what it felt like, to know what digital ownership is. And the same when you got to make the trade, you have to make the trade. You can't just talk about making trades. You can't just be curious about trading. You got to press the button to feel it, know what it feels like to take a loss, know what it feels like to be up 10x, 100x, know what you're going to know what it feels like to make that decision. And now I think you've got to be talking with these agents to excel yourself. Ledge, final thought before we get into the main stuff.
Yeah, very much agree. And the gap is only going to widen this year between people who are trying to like super scale themselves with using these tools and people who are refusing to use that. And it's happening faster as probably all of us have thought.
Um, Indeed. Indeed. Right. Let's do it. Let's get into the main stuff as usual to get you up to speed. Starting with the price action, we have Bitcoin up a couple of percent to 96.5K. ETH's up a couple of percent as well to 3.3K. XRP is flat, $2.11. BNB up 1% to $937. Sol is up 1% to 144. And we have Hyperliquid down a couple of percent to $25. Went as high as maybe 26 something yesterday. Sui's at $1.84. We've also got, on the meme coin side of things, we've got Doge down 1%. Pepe down 8%. Trump is down 3%. Bonk is down 4%. Pengu's down 3%. A bit of a red day today. Fartcoin's down 8%. Mostly red, I would say, compared to yesterday, where we've had like a bit of an excessive run up across the board for a couple of days on the other assets. So cooling off, I would say, at the same time as stocks and gold just took a breather as well, or are taking breathers. Getting into the headlines themselves that we're going to talk about, Bitcoin was actually still kind of jolted up, hit 97K yesterday. It was up 3%, whilst gold and stocks were flat. So we'll touch on that. Do our usual asset roundup. Supreme Court does not rule on Trump's tariffs for a second time. We did talk about that a little bit yesterday, but I guess we'll just need to have a conversation about how we're playing this. Like, there's just really, really strange things going on. We've obviously tried to tie together some of those themes a lot on the show. We'll try to do that again and just talk about it because it's helpful to discuss. And finally, Monero hits almost $800 as privacy narrative is still in focus before pull back to around $700. That's more than 2x over the week. Some other notable price action: Lighter's down 15% now, beneath $2 billion FDV, down to $1.87. Frax is up 60% to $1.25. Zcash is up 6%. Also on the privacy narrative, back above, comfortably above $400 now at $436. In some other news, Coinbase withdraws support for crypto market structure bill. I think that is pretty impactful, pretty big news. Maybe Funky will have a word to say on that in a bit. Noise raises $7.1 million seed round led by Paradigm. And despite being incubated on Mega ETH, they revealed that they will now be launching on Base. So that has caused some consternation, I think, but very significant raise by them. And win for Base, I think. Lighter announces lit staking with LLP access gated with $10 USDC for every one lit staking. So Lighter trying to provide some utility to the token. I don't know if that's why the token immediately went down as a consequence. Sometimes that is the way in crypto. When you try to provide the utility, you can actually measure the utility then. Also, sport.fun token goes live today. We'll be talking to Adam a little bit later on today's show to get into some of those details and numbers and what to expect and some exciting things down the pipeline. Sui blockchain actually went down for 2 hours yesterday. The SEC closes its investigation into Zcash. Alpaca raises $150 million Series D as a tokenization infrastructure provider. And also around the space, MetaMask have teased a token launch coming soon. Jesse and Brian from Coinbase suggested a greater focus on trading and that they might be moving away from creator coins. Beezy announces collection on chain live on Base today. That's exciting for our partners at Beezy. Moonbird published their thesis of a plan to generate $1 billion in revenue through distribution of the Burb IP, and basketball.fun will launch on January the 19th. Whew. Feels like I had a lot to say there, Ledge. Feels like I had a lot to run through. You know what that means when there's a lot of news, there's a lot of stuff going on. What do you think? That's the roundup for the day, but anything catching your attention here? What's catching your eye?
Yeah, it's definitely the Coinbase withdrawing support for the crypto market structure bill. Maybe I want to break down what is happening there. And I saw a Funky thumbs upping, so I think he's going to have a take on that as well, as you have already indicated. So what happened is Coinbase decided to exit talks on the crypto bill. That could derail the legislation in Congress. That is according to Cyberg. A couple industry analysts also saying that the bill now may result in a worse outcome for crypto firms, be good for banks, but prolonging regulatory uncertainty. And the Senate Banking Committee still plans to hold a hearing this Thursday, but two individuals following the negotiations told CoinDesk, where I am currently providing information from, that the committee did not have the votes regardless of whether Coinbase supported or opposed the bill to advance it.
Interesting. Very, very interesting stuff. I think I saw something coming out from Robinhood, though, where Vlad from Robinhood had said that he was in support of it. Funky, your hand is raised. You've been following this piece of news very much and very closely. What did you make of the news that Coinbase pulled their support, whilst it seemed like a bunch of other people were going to just continue to support it?
Yeah, so that was very interesting to see how Brian and Coinbase said we're not going to support it, and then AI16Z and a number of other heavy hitters said we're still moving forward with this. There's a lot of chatter in the BA chat. A lot of people feel that it's better with no bill than a crap bill, just in general, because this thing is so far afield from what the House passed. And it really dawned on me now that I've seen some of the actual, it's 278 pages. Admittedly, I haven't read it all, but I've read a number of sections. I've reviewed some of the amendments that have been put forth. They're delaying the markup now, which was supposed to happen today. Now, Senator Tim Scott, who's in charge of the bank committee, said we're punting on the markup. So there was such a row created over this right now. I think what will happen, what hopefully will happen, is that we'll get a much better bill out of this. And it may take longer, because going back to the BA policy summit in December, almost every time a House member was on the stage for a fireside chat or whatever, or just talking to people, they said the number one thing that people could do was call their senators and ask them to use the House version as the base text. Because remember, what happens, and for those who don't live in the US, typically you have both houses will propose their own version of the bill, and there's some kind of reconciliation where they meet in the middle. The House passed a Clarity Act way back when in the fall. 78 Democrats voted for this thing. And a lot of people who read it in the BA loved it. It was very open-ended, kept DeFi, kept like all the innovation that we would want the crypto industry to have locked into law. I think the reason that people are freaking out about the Senate bill, which is clearly so beholden to the banks, and like tokenized equities, things that we've talked about that we want to happen in this industry. No, you can't do it. I mean, there's just so many pieces that they're shutting down with this bill and with the amendments. I think that there's a number of people. I was surprised to honestly see some of the bigger players in the game say, you know what, it's okay, we'll still support it. Because the problem is, if you lock this into law, it becomes very, 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 very hard to change. And that's, I think, the biggest reservation that people have.
I think that's very nicely put. Just for people who are trying to get their head around why why Brian Armstrong kind of took back the support. Ledger just sent the tweet just to summarize. And when Funky says it's like a complete, I wouldn't necessarily say U-turn, but it's really denouncing or shutting off all the possibilities of DeFi in a very, very strong way. So I'm definitely on the Coinbase side here in this specific instance. He said there are too many issues, including, we've got this up on screen for the people who are watching, a de facto ban on tokenized equities. You can't agree to it, guys, because the whole thing that people have been super excited about and loads of platforms have actually gone live with is tokenized equities. Like loads and loads of people. Kraken have tokenized equities. Coinbase, I think, have them coming or have them already. Ondo are doing it on chain on Ethereum. Stocks, X stocks, or StocksFi or X stocks are doing it on Solana, getting huge volume. Like it's definitely finding product market fit. Hyperliquid are doing it via Trade XYZ, but with leverage. This is like one of the main things, one of the big things that the whole industry is bullish on. And there's just a de facto ban on it. So that's the first thing. DeFi prohibitions, giving the government unlimited access to your financial records and removing your right to privacy. Again, privacy being this core thing. I don't think that them knocking at the door, trying to get all your information is going to stop. So I think this privacy narrative is going to continue to run, even though in practice, the mass people don't care about it enough. I think it'll be something that there's a meaningful minority will care about sufficiently to make the prices of privacy things go up. The erosion of the CFTC's authority, stifling innovation and making it subservient to the SEC, and draft amendments that would kill rewards on stable coins, allowing banks to ban their competition. I think that's obviously an issue for a number of people too. And I concur with Funky. Very surprised that so many other people are going along with it. But I think ultimately you just have to study the incentives, right? Study the incentives and you'll figure out the outcome. I'm sure lots of the banks will will be trying to team up with any incumbents to try to figure out a way to exert their influence in a meaningful way. So that was interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, Ledge. One thing I wanted to bring up was this tweet by CoinGecko yesterday. It kind of went viral. This is on the number of failed cryptocurrencies by year. And just get a load of this if you're listening in, if you're watching in, we've got it up on the screen. This is the number of failed cryptocurrencies by year. Might give you some indication why alt season is struggling in some way. 2021, there were 2,584 tokens that failed. Now, I don't know exactly the definition of failed, but let's, when the token goes to zero or more or less zero, let's take it as that. 2021, 2,584. 2022, 213,000. 2023, 245,000. 2023 was the bear market, right? So not that many more than 22. 2024, 1,382,000. So a 5x after the 100x from 2021 to 2022. And then 2025, 11,564,909 tokens. Just an absurd number of tokens that are getting produced, an absurd velocity at which these things are getting produced. You can entirely understand why there is just too much going on for any set of interest and concentration of interest and capital in specific tokens when there are so many options, when so many people are chasing the long tail of things. So I thought this was an interesting metric, Ledge. I know that, look, I don't know 100% what they're defining as a failed cryptocurrency, but I thought that was pretty interesting. What do you think?
Yeah, just to maybe help with the methodology, they define that cryptocurrency which is listed on Gecko Terminal, which is then no longer actively traded. This is to them dead or failed, group that per year that they had the last active trade in, and the data was taken between July 1st, 2021 and December 31st, 2025. What I actually found surprising is this little chart, which is basically showing how many cryptocurrencies have been listed versus how many are failed or dead. So the listing in 2021, for example, is already like strong. We had 400,000 listed currencies, then 700K, then 800K, then 3 mil. And in 2025, the ratio is 20 mil listed and 11 million, which you said died. So basically more than half died, which were listed. And 80% out of all cryptocurrencies of all time which have ever been created failed in 2025 as a result of that, because obviously the volume picked up so much. So I found that surprising that the failure is quote unquote only 50 something, 52, 53-ish percent. But I would argue if you extend those criteria and say that anything that has less than 10K trading volume a day is also failed essentially, then I would expect it's, I don't know, 16, 17, 18 mil, if not even significantly higher. It's a very generous methodology for what is failed.
So you're saying this is actually a sympathetic chart to
Yes.
the tokens that have died. There are more dead tokens than what is being suggested here.
Yeah.
Okay. Kind of makes sense, guys. The one thing I would say about all of this, as you're trying to determine like how to create value and how to make these tokens have value, is I actually think it's roughly right. Like it's not supposed to be easy to create money out of nothing, out of nowhere. It's very, very hard to build outstanding businesses. It's very, very hard to continue to drive value to tokens, whether they do represent tokenized equity or not. Just as many businesses trying to create equity in the normal world fail, whether they have tokens or not. Like businesses fail all the time. And so tokens going to zero sometimes can just be a reflection of a failing business. And that is what happens sometimes. Like it's okay. And actually, we're probably doing pretty decent, to be honest. There's more shots on goal. More tokens means more shots on goal. A lot of the stuff will be bad. It's your job to discern and try to figure out some of the better stuff, right? And I appreciate a lot of this volume will be like meme coins and nonsense coins as well. It's your job to find out which ones are fun enough to maybe play around in. But that is that. Interesting stuff. Guys, we got the exciting chat with Adam from sport.fun coming up a little bit later. That'll be in about 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. But let's get into the first headline today, because there's some interesting stuff going on. Let's do our asset roundup first. Ledge, Bitcoin's knocking on the door. I've been saying I wanted to press the bid button the last couple of days, and I did. What do you think? What do you make of this? What's going on the asset side?
Absolutely. Let's take a look. As you said, the big winner of the day is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is up to almost 97K and is certainly right now being helped by the spot ETF net inflows. We reported yesterday that the volume on the day before yesterday was up to 753 mil. And now we have an even higher number. Best day of the year is now yesterday, actually, with 840 mil in net inflows into the BTC ETFs, which is 2 very strong days, just one after another, while the rest of the market seems to have cooled off a bit. We have seen a bit of a correction on the silver and gold side of things. Correction is maybe an overstated term. Gold is down 0.25%, silver is down 46 pips. However, silver, if we zoom in a bit here, did go a bit higher, almost had touched $91.5, is now trading just a touch under $91, whereas gold is trading at a bit above 4.6K. Taking a look at the stock side of things, just to see how the pre-market's looking. Pre-market is looking pretty decent today. I would argue we have S&P futures being up 32 bips. We have NASDAQ futures being up almost 80 bips, so almost up 1%. And if we take a look at the sectors in the S&P 500 to understand what's been running over the last week, it is a cycle in the market right now where consumer staples as well as energy are the big winners. The consumer side of things is up actually 7% of the week. Energy is up 5% over the week. So we have the strength in these sectors, whereas tech is flat or down almost 0.5% over the week in the S&P 500. So that might explain some of the things which we are seeing in the market right now.
Was that on your side or mine?
It was on my side, actually. Sorry for that.
Oh, good. Interesting. Okay, so what are you thinking here, Ledge? Everything's at all-time highs. Do you have a particular viewpoint still? Are you still mostly doing other stuff? I felt compelled to press the bid button, mainly determined by one of my tweets the other day, which is like, I'm kind of getting a headache because I feel like there's more stuff going on. And I think I tweeted something like, when you got to sell when there's too many stupid things going on, and you also kind of need to know when to buy when there's too many stupid things going on. I wonder whether it's the same type of indicator, just for a different moment. What are you thinking there?
Yeah, I think we talked about that offshore to kind of call it that the stupidity loop. Like once full, we flip from bearish to bullish, and vice versa. Like once enough stupid things have happened, but I feel like the big thing for me is now going to be, obviously BTC has shown some strength. The last time I did buy was the end of year, where it was like just a touch under 90K, if I remember correctly, where I did my last significant buy. Happy to be up on that, but the interesting question is going to be, will we see the breakout of BTC reclaiming 6 figures, or how much can we trust this market action? It does feel like we have broken out a bit of the usual range BTC has moved in for the last month or so, but still curious to see if we reclaim 6 figures and how the market's going to do the days after that. And if that looks good, that will definitely make me feel more bullish for the crypto side of things. And for stocks, I think we said it multiple times on the show, both of us, if I can speak for you, think it is a good year to be an asset holder. So no indication or reason for me at the moment to divest from the stock side of things.
Yeah, the two caveats, I guess, is that when we talk about this portfolio now, obviously I spoke about this yesterday as well. It's definitely not all in crypto in the way that it was before. Like there's more stock holdings for me, there's more gold for me, there's more metals, and so it's just not the same comprising. So when I'm like, oh yeah, I bid Bitcoin, I bid Hyperliquid, it's just not the same as once upon a time when it was like, oh, there's like so much Bitcoin as a proportion of my overall investable assets. It's far reduced, it's far more balanced. And I think maybe just over time you want to get to that position. Well, depending on your position, I think you want to figure out if that's the right position for you. And then the second caveat is like Trump is so headline making at the moment that you just can't write off the potential for something happening which tanks the market like 10-20%. I think you just can't write that off with Trump. I think it's very, very possible in this year where there's so many, if you think it through, there are so many things going on at the same time. There's Venezuela, there's Iran, there is the domestic stuff, tension between left and right. You have Greenland going on. I saw something yesterday that they're actually progressing towards or discussing acquisition. There's just a lot of things going on, and you don't want to rule that out. So I've got like one eye on that. I know people say everything's fine in the end, but on the chance that something like that happens, and you don't even know what it is, right? Because it's an unpredictable thing, it's an unknowable thing. I just want to have something on the side for a buy of that specific kind of dip. Do you have a view there?
Yeah, I agree. I think that last year clearly showed the tariff stuff, which was something that nobody had expected initially, crash the S&P 500 chart pretty heavily for a couple of months. Let's actually get it up. Yeah, there we go. You can see this dip. We were at 6,000. At the start of the year, went all the way down to 5K, lost almost 20%, and it took the market from April to start of June to recover to where it was at the start of the year, and then use the second half of the year to climb all the way from 6K to 7K. So there is a ton more volatility involved, and all these things which we are talking about, especially under Trump administration, can change pretty quickly. And we are best at this like 1 to 3 month time horizon, but that also still does not account for things that can happen in this administration at any day, and that could completely flip our view. So there's always basically the ceteris paribus assumption of everything else remaining as is.
Let's get into the second headline then, which is to do with the Supreme Court's ruling, because you're talking about like not knowing what's going on and not being entirely certain of things. This was the news yesterday that the Supreme Court has did not rule on the case that it said last week it already delayed on. It needs to rule on the Trump tariffs to say whether they are legitimate or not. It chose not to last week, said it would this week. And what happened yesterday is that the court released opinions in 3 other cases, but just skipped this one, delaying the decision further. And thinking about when this could happen, I was chatting to Grok with it about this. Said the court could release opinions as early as later this week, but it doesn't announce specifics in advance. Over 1,000 companies have sued or positioned for potential refunds. Billions have already been collected, with estimates around $80 to $200 billion in revenue from these tariffs. So the tariffs have brought in a ton of money. And Trump has kind of already pre-attacked people for saying, look, if you close this off, if you turn off this tap, it's going to be terrible for the economy. They've actually done what they were supposed to do. But we don't know. I guess the bigger question here, and maybe we don't know the answer to this, and this is part of the reason why we're cautious, is that it feels like we're in a kind of market where I feel like this is kind of unprecedented, and it's a little bit suspicious. Like you don't get the ruling when you thought it was going to come. You don't get it again. Remember in November or December, they just didn't release, was it the unemployment data or one of the types of data they just opted out of doing? Something is is going on, and it's like slightly uncomfortable with assets at all-time highs. And some level, it makes you think, okay, we're just going to keep sending it. But also, like, there's something uncomfortable with the not getting the clarity, I think, which people are looking for. Funky, your hand is raised. What's your take on this specifically?
I don't know what the poly market odds are right now, but I still do not see a world in which, speaking of the word that you just said, unprecedented, I don't think they've ever, because remember, most of these conservative judges were put in place by Trump in his first term. I don't think they've ever gone against anything that has come before him that he started as an issue. So I could see a world in which maybe the happy medium is like, okay, you did what you did, don't do it again, and you can't further enact any other tariffs from here on out. But I don't see them striking this down. I just don't. I can't.
Interesting. Fair enough. I mean, the chance of them ruling in favor has gone up, Funky, in the last day or two. It was as low as 25 yesterday. I wonder whether that's people thinking, well, they wanted to rule against, and they've had like a tap on the shoulder. That's 2 days now. They've had to go and rewrite it and change it up to 33%. I'm with you. Like, I think the logic makes sense. They're just kind of confused why the number's so low. Like, why are people so confident that people are going to rule against it when, as you say, there's a lot of Trump favored people in there? And I think the thing is, obviously, if people don't know, the judiciary or at all levels is supposed to be entirely independent. In practice, maybe that's not always the case in different places, but you're really supposed to be making these decisions not based on economics, not based on commerciality, not based on what you think would be good for the country. The way law works, the way legal decisions work, is that you read what the law says that people are allowed to do, and you just try to administer the law as it was written whenever it was last updated. So sometimes people think like these judges have more sway than they do. Although I guess, look, realistically, some of this stuff is there are different ways to interpret it, and then you have judges who want to interpret it creatively. So it's interesting. We'll keep an eye on it, but I think it's definitely adding to that kind of uncertainty and speculative fever when, against the backdrop that, he's going after Powell at the same time and all those other things we've mentioned that's happening, where I guess US are on the offensive across the world, I think. Interesting stuff. Okay, Ledge, take us into this final headline. We might do a little bit on privacy, coins, that narrative, and anything else portfolio related.
Privacy is the very, very strong narrative, has been super strong in the last quarter of 2025. And one of the big winners at the start of this year is clearly Monero. Monero is up almost 60% over the last 7 days. It is up 72% over the last month. So most of its gains came actually in the last 7 days. It did go as high as $788. Yesterday, Monero is currently trading at $717. And that is an all-time high for Monero. And it is also on the backdrop that privacy coins are gaining a very fair amount of traction. Just to put it in perspective, when Monero had its run over the last 7 days, it did surge past $600 on Sunday. And compare that to the last all-time high, it had hit that at $542 in January of 2018. So it's 2026. It's 8 years later that we have seen a new all-time high. It did take quite a few time to see that running. And there's also a comment from Merkle Tree Capital saying that, as I just indicated before, we see this broader privacy run. It was actually also in Q4 that where everything was dumping, privacy held up relatively well. And as an additional note to that, maybe, I think we've seen it in the snapshot as well, that more of the news we've been talking about have been privacy related, privacy plus protocols being built. So I think it's not surprising to see one of the older and more popular privacy contenders to now have a strong run in an environment like that.
I don't think it's a majority thing that people care about. I think it's a strong minority which will become popular, and those people will hold, and those tokens will be valuable. But question on the two things. Obviously, Zcash ran quite hard before, and people were super positive about that. And that got a lot of traction, moved the hardest first. Now Monero's going. Is this a problem of splitting liquidity and attention between two big privacy coins? Is it fine for there to be two? Does it matter at all? What do you think from that perspective?
I would agree that there is an attention battle, and with Zcash, we had a bit of a negative news, which we reported on with the fight at the foundation level. Zcash is also up over the last 7 days. It's up 10% to $440, but it went as low as $360 when this public dispute happened. The thing that I am watching more when it comes to that is trying to get a picture on what regulators are thinking on that. And we had it in the snapshot, I think, that a couple of days ago, Dubai had a ban on privacy coins. Monero Zcash back then were not bothered by that, but the Dubai Financial Services Authority said they are banning privacy tokens and rewriting that crypto approval process for that specifically. So I will be very, very mindful of what the US, what the EU, what Asian and Middle Eastern jurisdictions think about privacy coins, because yes, the run is there, but if there's like a global crackdown coming on that, although the idea of privacy would be to kind of be able to escape that and still trade privately, but nonetheless, I think that would be putting some pressure and strain on these privacy tokens.
Yeah, one thing I'd say about that, just before we get to our interview with Adam from sport.fun, looking forward to that conversation in just a moment. It is their TGE day. We'll get to that in just a second. One thing I'll say about that is the Dubai thing specifically, it is to do with, I think they banned it for companies. It wasn't necessarily for individuals. So there was a little bit of news around there, which is like, okay, it's not quite the thing that people were painting it as. So you made that point. In terms of the rest of the perspective, do you think it is overpriced here? Do you think it's fair ledge? How are you? Do you want like privacy exposure for 2020? What year are we in? 2026.
2026. It's hard to tell. I still think it's a relatively small trend, but I also don't know if privacy is as cool of a breakout trend as the AI coins have been. So I would have a hard time saying that privacy is undervalued, and would try to make my mind up if I think, yeah, this is fairly priced around there given the attention, or if this is starting to be overvalued. Undecided between those two, but I don't think it's an underpriced sector at the moment because the breakout attention is not there for me yet.
Okay, understood. For me, I actually do want to have a little bit of exposure. I was trying to figure out how to buy Monero yesterday, and couldn't figure it out. Went and leveraged, longed it, and then literally longed it at the top because I was like, okay, well, I can only long it here in a decentralized way. So I actually do think I want a little bit of a exposure. I'm going to figure out a way to do that properly, but that will be for another time. Look, guys, we said that we wanted to get into our conversation with Adam from sport.fun today. Very excited to have Adam back for the second time. I'm delighted to welcome him to the show today. Sport.fun, if you didn't know when we had Adam with us last time, the leading consumer app on Base with more than 20,000 paying users, more than 3 million transactions, 65% user retention, and today is its TGE day. Adam, welcome back to the show. Second time with us. How are you feeling pre-TGE?
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me back. Yeah, I'm actually really excited. I think like as a founder, you hear the story about TGE day and like no one, and like everyone talks about like how stressful it is. And of course it is. But you know, we're feeling good about it. I think we've kind of done everything we can do to like prepare for it really well. So like I feel like we've done our jobs, and the rest is markets doing what markets do. So yeah, we're feeling good. We've got a really strong lineup of exchanges who want to list us. I actually oddly enjoyed that negotiation process. I think you don't realize, if you haven't done it, like how long that takes, and like how difficult that like horse trading process is, and like how competitive they are with each other as well. So that was like a really interesting thing. But I think we've come out of that well. But yeah, just looking forward to it. It's an hour and 10 minutes away. And I was writing an article, which I'm not sure I will get time to publish. But one of the things I said was, you know, I've been talking about the fun token for like 14 months. And I've got documents where we were talking about what it does and why we have it as a company. And it's happening. So yeah, huge day.
Very exciting. I was watching some of the pre-content that you've guys done to be like hyping up the token, hyping up the product, and the numbers that you guys have been putting out. And it kind of made me feel like the sport environment is like gearing up towards a final. I think obviously because you're a sports-based company, it made me feel that way. And I always remember when I used to play sport, you know, you get to the final and then you're wondering, like, do we do everything the same? Do you embrace the moment? Like, do you do anything differently now when you get towards the final, or is it like the same process? So for you guys, as you prepare for like this specific event, are you and the team doing anything differently? Are there like specific things you need to carve out, make sure you get right? Or is it like business as usual in some way?
That's an awesome question. Interestingly, I think for most teams, this would be like their first time going through a kind of token launch. Because of the nature of our product, like when you really drill down into sport.fun and football.fun, it's essentially a DEX, right? Like it's a market where we've launched many tokens. We've done this all the time. We've launched entire DEXs, both for football.fun, NFL.fun. We have seen everything there is, from the massive pumps and the euphoria to, oh my God, everyone's selling, this product is dead. And then the climb back, you know, and then everything kind of in between, all of that. So every time we've done anything from like launching football to launching NFL, the users of those products have never agreed, by the way, on which one is the football. But we've got a battle tested team who have kind of been through that process. Like we've launched tokens before. This is different. Obviously, this feels like the big game, where like I think because you don't actually have to enter the game to participate now, you might get even more eyes, even more attention on it, because it's like not only is it people who are playing the game, it's people who are just crypto people speculating on whether we're going to do well or not. I think so that comes with a ton of pressure, you know, which we're very well aware of. And what I've said to the team, you know, is in our team meetings and calls, it's just do our jobs, you know, make sure it's smooth, make sure we've got the good exchange deals. The rest is kind of the rest, you know, whatever happens tomorrow, I will still wake up and I'll try and build the best sports game that we can. But yeah, it's hugely exciting. I'm really hyped for the next couple of hours and find out what's going to happen, because I don't know.
You mentioned, you know, the pressure of being in, I guess, in this moment. We were speaking to, you've got your rec cap on now. We had Ovi on the show on Monday, just chatting about Rect and talking about the coin. And once it goes live, like a lot of founders, and I guess there's genuinely two approaches here. You can say, look, the token's out. I need to focus on the work. You know, the token exists, but the work is the work, and that maybe is priority. Ovi's perspective on Monday was saying, I watch the token all the time. Like I wake up, I check the token, I go for shit, I watch the token, I go to the gym, I watch the token, like I come back, I watch the token, every moment of the day. What's your like view? And as you said, you've been through this before. What's your view on once the token's live, you're the founder, your team will obviously have maybe incentives attached to tokens, and it's an important thing. People care about the price. How do you kind of, what's your perspective on it?
Another great question. Yeah. Like, I think anyone who tells you they don't care about the price is a liar. Like you always care. Like it becomes like almost like a kind of public measure of your success, which of course is not true. So we, in our game already, we have our market cap, and everyone always talks about, oh, how's sport.fun doing? You know, what's the market cap? It's irrelevant, actually. Like our market cap was way higher in August, and we were a worse product then. Like we're a better product now, and our market cap is lower. And that's a product of hype. So of course you care. Of course I will be waking up every morning and checking it all the time. But ultimately we do have to focus the team on building the product. So what, we actually had a team meeting last Friday where it was kind of like all hands, and the topic was, hey, we're doing TGE next week, but actually there are other numbers exist, other than market cap and FDV. And what we really care about is retention. And are people enjoying the product? Are they still joining the product? Are they spending money? Are they trading? Because ultimately that is how we win. I think you've almost got like two separate phases in our minds of like, you've got to get the token launch right. You've got to do, we're crypto native people. We know what makes people excited about tokens. You've got to manage that process. And you've also got to be a completely different person who's managing the product at the same time. I think if you try and do one or the other, you will fail. I genuinely think you've got to do both. You've got to care about the price. And we are running this in a completely different way. So like when people talk about like, I feel I can get into this because it's that kind of show, like it's intellectual audience, like the value accrual. Does it go to equity? Does it go to token? We've made a clear decision that it goes to token, right? Like our equity organizations are there to house ops and boring things, not value. So we want to drive everything towards that token, which I think makes life a little simpler, and it matters. It matters for the business as well.
Yeah, I have two follow-up questions on that. First, when you made this decision, I want to connect it to something you said earlier. You said you really enjoyed the process of negotiating with the exchanges, which I found pleasantly surprising, because that's probably like where you hear many founders either struggling with that or not enjoying it, or being worried about the exchange or market making side of things. So A, why was it an enjoyable process for you? And B, was that a question from the exchanges? Is that what they're asking? Hey, how do you view this token equity split? Because it's been discussed so much recently.
I think in terms of like the exchanges, the token equity split never really came up. What they care about is volume. Are you going to generate volume? So when they look at us, they see a good track record. Like every time we've launched something, it has done well. We've got over $100 million volume, best product on base, all those kind of stats. So they've got that. I would also say that there's a human side to the exchanges, and there was a genuine willingness to support a product, like a real product that wasn't just like vaporware or like some kind of obscure DeFi thing. Like a lot of people look at this and go, actually, I could see my friends using that. And that's not insignificant, because it makes people more likely to want to work with us, and it makes them more likely to do deals. So during that process of negotiating with the exchanges, there was quite a few times where I said to some of the biggest organization in crypto, actually, no, like we're not prepared to do that deal. And they came back and were like, okay, we'll meet your terms. So I think because like we've had some good traction, and because there's a general goodwill there, people were willing to give us better terms than usual. So we came out of that process feeling like, we'd won, and they're going to win as well, because we do think we'll drive decent volume to them. So that's why I enjoyed it, because at the end of the day, we felt like we came out of that well. There's also parts of it that are not enjoyable. Like I also spend 2 or 3 hours of my day today sending tokens to market makers and whatever. Like it is not glamour. A lot of the stuff you have to do as a founder is just grind and boring. But I always think about it in my head of like, there's been times in my life where I've not been doing what I really want to do. And for me, that's the stressful thing. So like, give me TGE day any day, because it's actually genuinely a privilege. Like, I know it sounds a little bit trite, but imagine being able to launch a token that you genuinely think is good in a product you think is going to do well, that you really love working on, with the best team that I've ever worked with in my life. It's an amazing day. So yeah, let's see what happens later.
Sounds very exciting. Let's get into some of the numbers, which you kind of touched on, but I think David from Base even shouted you out sharing some further numbers. So let's just touch on those. And I wanted to ask, like, what you care about most. And also, was there some numbers you cared about more at the beginning, and then as you evolve, you care about more? So just to touch on a few, we mentioned 20,000 paying users, more than 3 million transactions, 65% user retention. In addition, $2 million raised, led by Six Man Ventures, very prominent crypto VC firm, strategic investment from Base Ecosystem Fund, $10 million pledged during the ICO, and $108 million trading volume thus far. So those are the numbers, very impressive numbers objectively so far. What do you care about most now? Does that change as you evolve the company?
Yeah, I mean, like, sorry, I'm just going to turn my Slack off because it's constantly pinging and that may appear. It does, like, I think it's actually really hard to get away from market cap. Like, we have found that in the company, because like, and this is our fault, because we put this front and center in the app, because when we were designing the app originally, you look at things like Coinbase, because there's trading in there. So you like put the market cap right at the top, because that's convention. And then that got focused on then as like the canon of like, how is football.fun doing? It's the market cap that matters. So then almost like morale in the company became tied to this number. So that applies to me, that applies to like the engineers. Everyone would come in in the morning. I say come in, we all work remote on Slack, but you could tell like people were feeling that number. And if the number had rocketed up, it was like they shared the community of euphoria. And if it had gone down, everyone shared like the depression of that number. So we've tried to be more sophisticated. So we've like built out a kind of analytics in-house about like, retention and churn and like all those different things. So when we think about like individual features, we think of those numbers. So like some of the best ways to improve the product is like you look at the product and you're like, okay, our retention, and this is true, like our retention is really strong. Our actual like new user onboarding is really poor. So like once we've got them on the platform, they stay, but that first bit sucks. So it's then obvious for us to be like, okay, our onboarding experience sucks. And it does, because we've never really worked on that, because we knew the crypto audience, as long as they can make money, they will just overcome that, as long as they've got someone to like hold their hand and tell them what to do. So we're now developing these like more sophisticated metrics, but I still think like emotionally, it's going to be really hard to move myself and everyone in the company away from, how is the fun token doing? Like it just matters. Like that's what everyone else will care about. You can't change that. And to an extent, that's the game we got into. I don't think as a founder you can complain or cry about it. Like it is a skill issue. Like you've got to make sure and do everything you can to like make sure that does well. Because ultimately, like typical CEO job, right? If this is a traditional company, your job would be to work for the share price, right? And if your equivalent here is that we've made a decision where we are putting all value behind token and not equity, then it follows that the CEO's job is to work for the token price. So you can't get away from that at the end of the day. And, it's good. I don't mind it. It obviously comes with a lot of pressure, a lot of unfair criticism sometimes, but you got to suck that up. Like there's literally no point crying about that. You've just got to be, you've got to execute and you've got to build stuff and see what happens. I don't think there's any value in complaining about the market or how it might be unfair or not unfair.
Yeah, I like that. I like the take. And when you're saying you're building those more sophisticated metrics, the retention metrics, how tightly are they linked to the token distribution? Then you also had this post up saying to celebrate the TGE, you're distributing an extra 20 million fund tokens in the first month. How will this distribution work, and how tightly is it linked to the metrics you were just speaking about?
I'd say that's not all linked to the kind of retention metrics or anything like that. We don't do that. It's not. I think those metrics are good for like making an existing thing slightly better, right? So the canon example would be, damn, what's the language app that everyone uses?
Duolingo.
Duolingo, right? So what they're extremely good at is like just optimizing, like based on metrics. So that's kind of a product optimization tool. Crypto and like what keeps people holding a token or not is pretty much vibes, right? It's like you kind of have, actually the favorite word I have at the moment for this is taste, right? Like a good chef has taste, right? They know what tastes good. And you can't necessarily teach that. You can teach someone to cook, you can teach someone the techniques. You can never necessarily teach that feel for like, how do we make this appealing to actually hold this token and buy this token? Especially in an environment where people are very accustomed to just, we got to sell this thing. Like, how do you make them want to hold? And it's you give them a good reason. We've got a good product, we've got a good vision, I think. And then we've got this incentive package where we did a 4% initial airdrop. So all of our existing players are able to participate for that. But it is not an airdrop that is kind of dusting across lots of people. Like, we really have kind of prioritized our top 1,000, 2,000 people who were like, really there. And also proved that in the spikes we've seen in our platform, these are a lot of the guys who held when they could have sold for a massive profit, but didn't. My kind of vision for that airdrop was that guy has to think, shit, I was right? Like the guy who dumped felt smart, but we want the guy who stuck with us to feel like he won in the end. All right. So that is the kind of purpose of that airdrop. So there's kind of like a kind of gradual learning process between the community and the product. They will see what we do over time and they'll realize, shit, if we don't dump, if we don't do the thing that we think we're supposed to do, then it ultimately will win. So that's what we want to show with the airdrop. So it is concentrated to ideally be like very generous to the people that have sort of stuck with us. And then this 20 million is another 2%. This is almost like us doing another half of the airdrop again this month as an incentive for people who do hold. So even if, and it works on a redistribution basis, right? So even if other people sell, you actually get more of this package, which is kind of a mechanic we picked up on in the game because it works like this in the game. Like if you win, let's say you buy Yamal or Mahomes, like one of the top athletes, if they're winning and some people sell, your reward actually goes up because you take a bigger share of what they got. And it's actually really effective. So we've used that same mechanic as well. And then it's not just this, there's also like hard cash fee rebates. So if you hold the token, you've been trading in the last 4-6 weeks on the platform, we literally just give you money give you your money back that you've paid. And there's extra rewards as well. So you get more player shares on the platform. So the idea behind this was craft a really compelling offer, which is kind of like brain dead simple. Like, of course I am going to hold this token. Kind of like when you join a new mobile game and they offer you like, hey, pay 49 cents and you get this thing. It's just called an offer that is too hard to say no to. So that's the kind of initial holding offer. Yeah.
That makes total sense. Yeah. And look, I know it is TGE day today, and that is the big day, but we also only have a couple minutes left in the show. And I want to take a look in the future. We have the World Cup 2026, Super Bowl 2026, all those exciting events happening this year. How are you feeling? How are you thinking about these?
Yeah, we're really excited. I think one of the good things about completing TGE is that you then get this huge focus again on like the product. And yeah, like Super Bowl is going to be just a really exciting event. We're going to prepare something special for that. World Cup, the story writes itself. It'll be really exciting. It's US hosted, and US is actually our biggest geography now in terms of customers. And what we've done internally is set ourselves 3 months to build the greatest sports app in the world. That's ambitious, but if you miss it, you won't miss it by a lot, you know. And I think that's a good target. So we've got better rewards, better onboarding process, competition, skill-based performance systems. A new thing was a little bit like a kind of more traditional DFS thing where you pick like your 5 players of the tournament, and then we can judge your skill better. We've got social features. We've got the kind of like casino style retention systems, because fun, we are going to airdrop every month, right? Like we're not just using fun as like a let's hype TGE up. You could actually do this every month in the same way a casino gives rewards to its players every month that are playing. You can give them stuff. So that's kind of one of the main purposes of the Fun Token as well. So yeah, 3 months, we want to like make a transformational step forward in the quality of the app. And then looking forward to the World Cup and then the next seasons of football and NFL.
Very exciting. Have you noticed that the primary driver of volume is events based? Like one of my theses in general has been that there's too much stuff going on that's like on demand these days. There's a lot of on demand stuff, and people are kind of detached from the events based things. You know, when you used to watch a program and, you know, people used to watch it at the same time. Now you can't really even chat about it. Sport brings that people together in that sense. Have you noticed that in the numbers, and how I guess that's something you're going to capitalize on with these big events?
What's actually really interesting about our sports markets is they do follow the sport. So they don't, they follow a little bit the game mechanics. So there's always like, oh, at the end of a tournament, people are going to sell because they want to like reorganize their squads for the next one, and then they buy. So there are some like kind of cyclical things like that, but they are actually unique to our game mechanics. We've actually found we are only actually mildly correlated with like the broader crypto market. So we've had periods where Bitcoin has just absolutely died. And we've seen like a little bit of sell-off because people are like de-risking elsewhere. But because the actual main market is stablecoin based, we also had a lot of people going, shit, I'm so glad I was in football.fun. Because if I wasn't, I would have been in like Dogcoin 73 and I'd have been roasted. So yeah, I'm kind of like, as a founder, like very kind of like macro condition immune. So like when it takes like 9-12 weeks to organize a TGE. Obviously the market's looking good and everyone's bullish this week, but 3-4 weeks ago, everyone was like, oh, you'd be crazy to TGE in these conditions, bro. And I'm just like, fuck it. Like you can't just wait until forever. You might miss your window. And this is the time for us where it makes sense to launch a token. And I guess we're just lucky that the market is good this week, which is helpful. But I would have launched this in whatever conditions, because I think you've just got to be good enough to do that. Otherwise, you'll just be waiting to do it forever and never release anything. So I think people respond well to that message as well, because we've all been on those projects that are like waiting for the right market conditions that just never seem to come for them. And then when they do, every grifty, shitty project wants to launch at that time as well. So the advantage of launching at a time when people think you shouldn't is that no one else is.
Yeah, I think that's definitely accurate. All right, Adam, that was great to chat. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the listeners before you head off? I know you said TGE's in, I think now 45 minutes. We've got to let you go to get into the war room.
45 minutes, yeah. No, I mean, I think we covered everything. I'm just, yeah, thanks for having me on the show again. Look forward to coming back one day and telling you how it went. Yeah, and just like shout out to my team, really, because I can chill on these spaces and have a good time chatting to you. They'll all be running the war room and making sure this actually works. So yeah, really grateful to them as well.
Awesome. Shout out to them. So just a reminder, you can follow Adam's journey at AdamFDF_, and of course at football.fun, which covers both types of football, which is excellent. NFL and the real football. If you want to follow along.
And more sports to come as well.
And more sports to come. Exciting stuff. Adam, thanks again for joining us today, and good luck with TGE.
Pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Just a reminder, guys, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time, live on X Video, YouTube, and you can catch us on Apple, Spotify podcast too. We hope you have a wonderful day. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. See you then. Bye-bye.